Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and today I have something that is should blow you away. Here's what we have. The people at Linqto were having they have like a monthly conference. Now remember, this is the company where you can buy the SPVs. Now you can get Uphold shares on there, but they also have Ripple available. Okay. Now, there was a lot of questions that people were asking about how Linqto worked. What you're about to see, today I attended their conference online, but I'm going to give you a lot more than that. You're going to find out exactly how Linqto works, but you're also going to find out some information about PolySign. At the end of this video, you're going to see someone else that you might recognize ask Greg Kidd a question. Greg Kidd was on there too today, and you're going to see the CEO of Uphold. You're also going to see the CEO of Securitize, and I think you're going to be very surprised by some of the questions you see asked. You're going to be surprised by some Uphold news, and you're going to be surprised by what might be in the works on PolySign. Okay, and so. But in other words, you're going to get to see two CEOs, and we're going to be able to interact with them and Greg Kidd. So enjoy, and I will of course finish this with my line, which is actually I'll just go ahead and tell you now. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and watch this whole video because you are going to see some interesting things here. Thanks for listening or watching.
Great. That was a terrific conference today.
It was. We've had a major turn here between what we're talking about digitally and then ending up with what we're talking about in life sciences. But both our digital discussion and our life sciences discussions kind of converged at a certain point, and it all comes to digitization and what's going on in the world. And I think Greg made a very good point in the panel discussion when he was saying that everything is leading toward digitization because of the pandemic. One of the silver linings of what's happened with us, I think, with COVID-19 and the pandemic is the fact that so much is accelerating in the space. Anyway, we'll move on to just one final piece here. We had told you earlier in the day that we would explain to you how you could get involved as an accredited investor with making investments in companies like Ripple and Uphold that we talked about earlier, companies that are digital assets companies, but instead of investing in Bitcoin or XRP, you now have the opportunity to invest in equity. Of course, you've always had the opportunity to invest in equity in some of these companies. However, if you're in the primary market, you would need to be part of a large fund. And if you're in the secondary market, you typically would need $500,000 or $1 million to invest in. So what Linqto has been working on for the past year and just launched in February of this year is a way for us to democratize that space so that accredited investors can invest in this product with as little as $5,000 or $10,000 minimums. If you're interested in doing it, finding out how to do it, experimenting with it, you can install the app. It's at the App Store. It's also at the Play Store. Just do a search on Linqto and get the app. We are a mobile-first technology, so a lot of what we do is done directly through the app, but we also have a website at www.linqto.com, so you can go into the website and make an investment as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Joe in just a minute to talk about the specific investments, but just to give you a little bit of background of what happens when you go through the app. First piece is accredited investor validation. You need to be an accredited investor to invest in this type of product. It's the same as when we invest in the acorns that we're investing in through Keiretsu Forum. When you create your free account on the platform, it will ask you to self-accreditize, telling us how you are accredited. But we need to go a step further, especially with major unicorns. We need to prove the accreditation. And that can be done in one of two ways. You can do it on-chain by going through our app and global ID to get the accredited status. Or if it's easier, simply fill out your profile as you get to the point where you have to submit your order. When you review the order, a profile will pop up. We'll get the basic information that we need from you. that will not prevent you from executing the transaction. You can go through and execute the transaction. If we don't have your accredited status validated at that point, someone from Linqto's team will reach out to you to get the proper documentation that we need. Private investing made simple. That's been our tagline, and that's been our vision for the past year and a half as we've been building out this platform to make it both accessible and affordable, as well as liquid. In the way that we do this, unlike the other secondary market processes like, say, Forge or Equities In or Shares Post or Zimbato and Manhattan Ventures, there are a number of people who operate in the secondary market, but typically they're operating as broker-dealers. You go into a bid and offer situation, and they have to negotiate a transaction between the seller. Then that transaction needs to go through to the company for their ROFR, right of first refusal. And it takes some period of time to get there, and usually the minimums are quite substantial. Linqto acts as a principal. We purchase shares, and then we put them up on the platform as part of an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. Each individual block that we buy is a separate special purpose vehicle so that you can buy into equity in an individual company and create your own portfolio. We don't operate as a fund where we choose various options for you. You choose the particular type of share that you want. You're not actually buying shares in the company. You're buying units in the special purpose vehicle. However, the units equate directly on a one-to-one basis to shares. And when the company goes public or exits, you would then be converting those shares the same way you would do with any equity in a company that exits. But also the liquidity portion of it, you don't have to wait for an exit because they are units in an LLC, basically. There are no restrictions against reselling them out in the public market. All of the paperwork is generated automatically for you, the operating agreement, the subscription agreement, and once you complete your transaction, you'll get a member certificate, and all that is listed and put into your account section. So as was being talked about earlier in the various panel discussions and sessions, we also operate digitally in a paper world so that you have access to all of the paper that's generated as a result of the transaction. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Joe, because let's talk about specifically in a company. One of the companies that we have listed is Ripple. And Joe, maybe you can talk a little bit about why Ripple might be a good investment at this point.
Sure. You know, it's the one investment that's probably garnered the most interest on the Linqto platform so far. And I think that's a function of two things, Bill. One, there's been a tremendous amount of crossover interest on the part of people that have invested in the XRP, cryptocurrency that is an essential part of the payment system that Ripple has constructed and is using today to the benefit of many financial institutions. So a lot of the folks that had invested in XRP in the early days are now seeing this great opportunity, as Greg Kidd said, to spread their bets and therefore are allocating funds to investing in Ripple. So we're seeing a lot of that crossover investment. And then the other, just from a pure, even if you weren't an XRP holder, you're certainly interested in participating in the tremendous appreciation opportunities that generally have been available to pre-IPO investors. You know, there's been reams of studies that have shown that the best returns come from being able to invest in companies that go public successfully, but being able to invest early prior to that initial public offering. So we've got a lot of investment interest that's being driven by that as well. Ripple made an announcement in January of this year saying that they're going to list. And I think that, there's pretty good evidence now that the IPO market has opened up. The first 2 weeks of June saw significant activity in that market, had two very successful IPOs in the form of Zoom and Vroom. And a number of companies have also filed registration statements in the second week of June. And then today, I think Palantir, which was valued the last time they did a private round at about $10 billion, also filed a registration statement. So I think we're going to see the IPO market now starting to open up, and hopefully that'll also engender a lot of interest in Ripple.
Thank you, Joe. And so we've been concentrating a lot on those companies that are in the digital assets business. They're kind of growing up now, and even Ripple itself is the second largest private company in the fintech space right now, I think, behind the Stripe at roughly a $10 billion valuation from their last round. But what about getting invested in some of these companies a little bit earlier on, where the company's already successful, but they still have a lot of room to grow? I know we put Uphold up on the platform just a couple of weeks ago, and that's been selling rapidly. What would you say about Uphold as a potential investment at this point?
Well, Uphold might be the next Ripple, right? I mean, if you'd had the opportunity to invest in Ripple equity 3 years ago rather than today, you would have bought it at less than 1/3 the price at which it's available today. So, I mean, if you believe that Uphold is going to be an essential part of that digital asset infrastructure that the panel was talking about earlier, then it's a simple matter of looking at that price today and saying, okay, is that going to be another $10 billion unicorn that Ripple is today 3 years from now? So a number of our investors who had invested in Ripple 1 month ago are buying into exactly that thesis and diversifying their digital asset exposure by investing in Uphold. And so we've seen a significant, we put Uphold on the platform no more than 2 weeks ago, I think, Bill. And since then, the response has been quite tremendous. We've sold 1 series and are looking to put a 2nd series of Uphold on the platform.
Yeah, actually, we had to put a 2nd series up because it sold so fast, and that one is almost sold out. But we have been negotiating with JP to see if we can get some more available and up on the platform. I do have to admit that I've invested in both Ripple and Uphold through the platform. I think they're both fascinating investments. Certainly Ripple because it's about to go to IPO, but we're at like the equivalency of $28 a share for Ripple, which I still think is a great price since their last round was at $61.49 a share in terms of their private capital raising. But when you look at Uphold that you can buy right now at 35 cents a share, that certainly has a lot of room for upward movement out in the market. So that's kind of interested me on an individual basis.
Yes.
So what else would you like to say today, Joe, to our general public about investing in anything that might be available out there in the secondary market?
I'd say, 2 things. One is that we are, at the end of the day, beholden very much to our customers, because the fundamental value proposition of Linqto is that we're enabling investment flows by these small accredited investors that would otherwise not happen were it not for Linqto. But by the same token, they are therefore our most important constituency, and we'd like to hear from them, whether it's through emails or through our customer service desk, what your ideas are for what other companies you'd like to see on the platform. It takes a lot of work on the part of Linqto to obtain access to those companies and to those shares, but to the extent that you can guide us with that information, please share it with us. We'll do our utmost to find those shares, take investment positions in them, and make them accessible to all of you.
Okay, we have one question here from Bing Heckman before we get to DAI and the other influencers. We have a question from Bing, who is a longtime Credit Forum member, also an investor in Linqto. If a firm goes public, does that trigger a capital gains event by converting the units to shares, even if someone continues to hold the IPO shares?
So nobody actually holds the shares per se, except for the investment vehicle that Linqto manages, Bing. So we've got the investment vehicle that sits on the cap table of the issuing company, and then you as an investor own membership units. So you're a part owner along with the other investors in that investment vehicle. when the company has a liquidity event like an IPO, we are subject as an insider and a shareholder to whatever the lockup period is, right? That's imposed on all the shareholders at the time of the public offering. But once that lockup period expires, we would sell those shares into the market and we would distribute all the cash proceeds back to the owners of the investment vehicle, to all of our investors. So to answer your question on the gains, depending on when you bought or made your investment, you would be subject to capital gains or ordinary income tax if you had just invested, under that 12-month holding period requirement for a gain. But in either case, what you would receive is you'd receive your proceeds in cash rather than in kind. If at that point you wanted to remain long on that stock, say it's Ripple, and you wanted to remain long on Ripple, you'd take the cash proceeds and then you'd go buy Ripple in the public market. So,
thank you, Joe. And DAI, if you'd like to come off of mute. I see that you have a question for Joe.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I have two things I wanted to ask. This you are going to excite me big time if it's a good answer to these two. Is it possible that you guys can get PolySign as one of the SPVs on the platform?
DAI, I was taking notes through this conference, and there were at least 4 mentions of PolySign. So absolutely, we're on the hunt for that.
Okay, that's great. Now the next one might be even better. I can't remember if you guys said if you have an intention to make this so that people can purchase SPVs with digital assets on the platform, and if that's something you're working on, when would that happen?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So, Joe, right now at DAI, we are in the midst of integrating the Uphold wallet. I would say probably within the next 1 to 2 weeks, it will be integrated, and you'll be able to then go into the Linqto platform, and using that Uphold wallet, you'll be able to complete the transaction with any of their 27 fiat currencies or their 30 cryptocurrencies. That's coming very shortly.
Game changer. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So we also have Mr. BXRP and Digital Perspectives here. Do you have any questions of Joe? So I don't know that I see any more questions. Here comes Nick. Mr. BXRP, would you like to ask a question of Joe?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it very much. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is when you change over the platform and your users are able to buy an SPV with their cryptocurrency, I assume there's a tax event that occurs when they go from their cryptocurrency to the SPV. Would that be correct?
Bill, you want to take that?
Yes, sure. So that gets handled through the exchange and through Uphold. It's the same as if you use their wallet to purchase anything using their wallet. And I can't attest to whether there is a tax event or not, because there may not be a tax event. But if that tax event happens, it's handled at the Uphold level. They are the agent. They will hold the account and they do all the transferring or all the exchange rate. Because we're working with them internally, directly in the platform, there are no transaction fees if it's done through Linqto to Uphold, whereas with other outside companies, there would be transaction fees. But relating to FX and transfers and currency exchanges, basically what we're doing at Linqto, we still work with the old-fashioned US dollar. So the money comes in through wherever it comes in, and then it comes into our account as USD.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to say, Bill, was for the people watching this video, is for those that aren't accredited investors and maybe don't qualify today to invest in an SPV product, that doesn't mean they're not going to qualify at some point in the future. So they should be keeping an eye on the products that you guys carry, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Not only that they may qualify in the future with the existing regs, but they might find in a very short period of time that the regs get, it's already happening at like the SEC level. I was at a conference in Austin, Texas, maybe a year and a half ago, where Jay Clayton was talking about the fact that he doesn't even believe that people should not be able to buy late stage unicorns when they can buy companies like Apple. Since then, the SEC has already come out with changes in regulations to broaden the perspective of who can be an accredited investor. And we're seeing the lines blurring. So it may be that within a few years, retail investment will be available in this market as well. So just keep an eye on that. For now, we have to make sure that everyone is an accredited investor, but it's not that difficult to be an accredited investor. And even that term, a lot of people don't understand. There are approximately 1 million people currently who are invested in private securities in the world, either through funds or individually. But there are 45 million people who meet the regulations to be able to do it. They just don't know that they meet the regulation. I mean, the average income at Facebook is $242,000. You only need to make $200,000 a year to be accredited. And you only need $1 million net worth to be accredited. It's not that difficult to be considered an accredited investor. So you should look at the regs carefully and see what you are, and we'll help you with that. If you come in and make a transaction, our people will get in touch with you and do our best to see if we can prove that you are accredited. We do need that proof in order to meet SEC and FINRA regulations, but we're on your side to try to help you with that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bill.
So I know that we're running a little over time here. Thank you all for your time today. It's been a fantastic session, I have to say.
Thank you, Matthew. That's very nice of you. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Excellent. What exciting times we're in, gentlemen. Jamie, actually, I wanted to ask you a question if I could. I'm a real estate broker, and I believe tokenization is the future. I can clearly see that. How do you take tokenization to the public? Like, as a real estate broker that's passionate, as passionate as I am about cryptocurrency, it's still a tough thing to explain to a commercial building owner how they can tokenize that asset and how the process is done and all the benefits of doing that. How do you get tokenization to the public?
Well, that's something we spend almost every day on, kind of explaining it, making it easier for people to digest. And I think, unfortunately, one of the things that has confused people quite a bit is this, and the earlier question kind of really brings it to light, is the difference between a security and a currency. And when people think of crypto, they naturally think of cryptocurrency. And crypto to me is really about kind of a public asset running on a public network. It's not necessarily a currency. It could easily be an asset. And so, you know, in our world, what we've done mainly in this space is to kind of hide as much of the crypto nomenclature and kind of things that prevent people from doing and using this stuff. So you kind of, instead of talking about wallets, which I think is actually a disservice, we talk about accounts. People understand what accounts are. Wallets to them are confusing. And so when it comes to securities, you hold your securities in accounts, you trade them from there, and that's where kind of everything gets built from. So I think it's as much about the vocabulary you use and communicating it and the benefits that are kind of being shared, which is, oh, I want to do dividend distributions. Great. Here's an easy online way to do that in 3 clicks. Oh, I want to know I want to share information with my investors. Great. Here's a simple portal where they can log into and see their assets. You can communicate with them. So focusing much more on the benefits as opposed to the plumbing underneath is really what we find resonates with people. So show me how you can save me money or make it faster. I'm interested. Tell me how the toilet works and the plumbing is connected. I don't care. Like, just get that shit out of here, literally. And then and we get confused in that way in the crypto world insofar as we try to prove that our technology is better. My experience with real estate doesn't care about technology at all. They want to not pay as many fees. They want to get their money quicker. They want to handle collections, all that stuff. Just make it easier for me. That's all I care about. So that's where I would focus.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yes, please.
Yes, again.
All right. I just got these earphones. They work. Hey, everybody. Now, I've talked to Greg before, so I'm going to ask a question to JP. And I'm sure that we will meet again, JP. This is not the last time you're going to talk to me. Um, but my question is this. It's real simple. I am tired of keeping my XRP off of an exchange. I want to be able to put my XRP onto an Uphold or a place like that and not worry about it anymore, just like I do when I buy stocks on E-Trade. When am I going to be able to do that? And are you working with someone like PolySign to make that happen?
Well, so let's see. So I think the best answer I can give you is 90% of the crypto we hold is in cold storage. The solution we've gone with is in partnership with a French company called Ledger, that we think is pretty leading edge. We're keeping very small amounts in hot wallets and kind of at risk. We've tried to, on top of the best technical solution, get folks like Greg and others to possibly help us insure or at least allow people to opt into insurance. But knock on wood, and it is a terrifying thing to contemplate or even say, but we haven't been touched, right? And lots of people have, and I'm nervous even saying that, but it's the thing we spend the most amount of time worrying about, right? And we understand that we're competing not just with folks like Coinbase and Revolut and what have you, but with cold storage itself. And so if we're not providing goods and services cold storage, then we're not doing our job. So we're always trying to add, either an ability to earn yield or other useful attributes that would compel you to come out of cold storage to use us, and maybe only temporarily so. But the fact that we're actually integrated with XRP, that it allows you to do that. Plenty of our competitors are sort of notional XRP right. or Bitcoin. It's not a real integration. We are really integrated with that network. So
Perfect,
at least
JP. Thanks so much for your question.
Oh yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so my next question is for Greg Kidd. Greg, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay. All right. So my question is that recently, and I've heard you even say, and even today, that you referred to XRP as a currency. Recently, we heard Christopher Giancarlo, former CFTC chairman, head of the Digital Dollar Project, also legal counsel Wilkie Barr to Ripple, put out a professional opinion where he remarked that not only was XRP not a security, but a currency as well. If XRP is to be a bridge asset to the world from fiat to all other tokenized things of value, do you see this thing working any other way than as a currency? And the other question off of that as well is it more regulatory clarity we need, a designation of this asset as a currency, or is it more rules?
So, I mean, when something's a security, and I'm talking about a security in a legal sense, it really does gum it up. And you could make all these things securities or none of them securities. We live in this sort of difficult land where it's clear that Bitcoin and Ether are now, from a U.S. definitional point of view, not a security. It is not assured that XRP is not a security, but they're leaning that way. They're like, look, if you've got Ferraris and Maseratis out there, these if Satoshi and they call Ether, it's kind of European. If they can have their thing, like we Americans, we need something that can compete with those. And if you handicap us by making it a security, it's a problem. Look, when I was at Ripple and we got sued by FinCEN, and they said, look, it's money. So therefore, you should be registered as a money transmitter, even though we weren't an exchange or whatnot. I was like, well, that's thankful. At least now we know we're not going to be treated as an asset or a security. We're not going to have the IRS or the SEC beating down our door. Boy, was I wrong. Like in America, like if this was physics, you could be a liquid, a solid, and a gas at all the same time. In physics, that's not possible. But from a regulatory point of view in the United States, you can have the downside of being a security, an asset, and a currency. So look, I think of digital currencies as currencies. the IRS, the SEC, they both get their bite at the apple. That's not going to change. I think it's changed enough for XRP that people are going to breathe a sigh of relief that they're not going to get slapped with a SEC punishment. And I think that's enough for Ripple to get to an IPO. And I think it's enough for people to use it as a bridge currency. That doesn't mean it's going to win as a bridge currency, but that's clearly what Ripple's chosen to focus on with XRP.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Greg. And I know we do have another question, but we're